Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Bold predictions for this Michigan program heading into 2024, at least in my mind as a Michigan fan myself. I think one of the more fascinating conversations that you can have around this Michigan team, where a lot of new faces, not only from a player standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint as well. A lot of different ways this Michigan team can look in 2024, which kind of makes having these hot takes a little bit more exciting. Now, before we get into it, I would love to hear some bold predictions from you guys in the comment section, or whether you're just critiquing or agreeing with some of my predictions as well. I think as college football fans, specifically fans of Michigan, it's a blast at this time of the offseason to kind of put your stamp and kind of call your shot heading into 2024. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. And if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. The support from the Michigan fans has been absolutely amazing the last couple of weeks. Can't thank you guys enough. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I'm going to start with, a little bit of a hot take right off the bat. That is Alex Orji rushing for over 1,000 yards in the 2024 season. A couple of different reasons why I think this could manifest itself in 2024. One, that's Alex Orji's skill set. And you look at Alex Orji, J.J. McCarthy was a phenomenal athlete, and he showed that plenty of times during his Michigan career, but Michigan didn't ask him to run the football that much because you had to make sure you kept J.J. McCarthy healthy, right? He's not necessarily the most put-together quarterback that you saw, so you wanted to limit the amount of times that he was taking hits. I think we all know what Alex Orji looks like. We've all seen the pictures of Alex Orji in the weight room. He looks like a linebacker playing the quarterback spot. If you are Michigan, you can ask Alex Orji to be much more active in the run game in 2024 because from a physical standpoint, he can take a little bit more contact and a little bit more usage than J.J. McCarthy could during the last 2 years. So I think, one, Alex Orji being the size that he is going to allow Michigan to use him a little bit more in the run game. I think, secondly, Alex Orji is just one of the more dynamic athletes that we have on this Michigan team. Now, you look at Michigan in 2023, Michigan ran the football top 25 most in the country while having a top 10 NFL draft pick at the quarterback spot. Now, Sherrone Moore having Alex Orji, at least what we expect is Alex Orji running this Michigan offense. You want to lean into his skill set. So a Michigan offense that was running the football a lot in 2023 with a quarterback that was very, very good pushing the ball down the field, I think you're going to see Michigan even lean into that run game a little bit more with Alex Orji, where, hey, play to your player's skills, right? You look at Alex Orji, what is he elite at? He's elite at being an athlete. We have some question marks about what he can do pushing the ball down the field. Those will get answered in 2024. If you were a good football coach, at the end of the day, you are leaning into what your players do best. Alex Orji is going to be doing his best work as an athlete for this Michigan offense, and I think you can ask him to run the football a lot. The last time Michigan had a 1,000-yard rusher, it was 3 straight seasons with Denard Robinson from 2010 to 2012. So we've seen this before from this Michigan offense. It was over a decade ago. I think Alex Orji could be that next quarterback to be that kind of guy. He's the best athlete we've had at the quarterback spot since Denard Robinson as well. So you combine that with a very talented running back room, what we think is going to be a good offensive line. You're going to see Alex Orji get a lot of carries. I think he could go for over 1,000 yards in the 2024 season. Number 2, and probably the hottest take, the boldest prediction that I have around this Michigan program, and that is Michigan is going to have a Heisman contender. And it's not going to be on the offensive side of the football. Well, I shouldn't say it's not. I think it certainly could be on the offensive side of the football, but the names I want to talk about are on the defensive side. And you look at one of Michigan's last Heisman contenders, it was Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line in the 2021 season. I think you could see a very similar kind of conversation emerge around 2 different players, Mason Graham and Will Johnson. I think they're the best players at their position groups respectively. Obviously, Will Johnson at cornerback, Mason Graham on the defensive line. And why I'm leaning in to either Mason Graham or Will Johnson emerging in this Heisman contender conversation. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to win the Heisman. That being said, Aiden Hutchinson was a lot closer than I think we realized to winning it in 2021. I mean, if Bryce Young does not have that massive game against Georgia in the SEC championship, we're probably talking about Aiden Hutchinson winning the Heisman Trophy in 2021. He was awfully close. It came in second in the voting. Why I think Mason Graham or Will Johnson can emerge as Heisman contenders. One, they're both exceptional football players, two guys that I think will be top 10 NFL draft picks in 8 months. But I think more importantly, you look at the recipe for Michigan making it back to the college football playoffs, potentially winning a Big Ten championship, being a national championship contending team. It's going to be on the back of this Michigan defense, right? We all know the recipe for Michigan winning 10 plus games in 2024. It is running the football and playing good defense. So if Michigan does emerge as a Big Ten championship caliber team, a national championship caliber team, it's going to be on the backs of the defense, specifically guys like Mason Graham and Will Johnson. I could see Michigan, if they are very, very good in 2024 towards the end of November, guys like Mason Graham, Will Johnson, getting in that conversation for the Heisman. Now, I think Will Johnson's really interesting because there's been some conversation about him playing a little bit on the offensive side of the football as well, which is certainly going to help Will Johnson's odds in terms of getting into that conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan, either Mason Graham or Will Johnson, kind of get included in that conversation. Now, my third bold prediction for this Michigan program is going to go at the linebacker spot. Ernest Hausmann being a first-team All-Big Ten linebacker. I think Ernest Hausmann and what he did in 2023, super underrated, right? Junior Colson, Mikey Baird, they were phenomenal linebackers for Michigan. Ernest Hausmann was third on the team in tackles in 2023, and he only missed 5.5% of his tackles. He played exceptionally good football for Michigan in 2023, only being a true sophomore, not even having a full offseason with that Michigan defensive scheme, where he kind of had to play, I would say, second fiddle to guys like Junior Colson and Mikey Baird, who had been in this Michigan defense for multiple years. Ernest Hausmann getting a full offseason. Wink Martindale coming in. We know he's going to get aggressive with how he decides to use these linebackers. I think Jayshon Barham and Ernest Hausmann both have the potential to be first-team All-Big Ten caliber guys. I was reading an article the other day about Ernest Hausmann being a bust in the transfer portal, which was absolutely ludicrous because, again, Ernest Hausmann played really good football for Michigan in 2023. I don't think he got the recognition. It was just a casual take, right? He didn't get the recognition that Mikey Baird or Junior Colson did, who had phenomenal seasons for Michigan. But Ernest Hausmann played really well. He's only going into his junior year, so he's only going to get better. Now his second year with this Michigan program, getting a little bit more comfortable in terms of what Michigan wants to do on defense. I think Ernest Hausmann can emerge as one of the better linebackers, again, not only in the Big Ten, but in the country. Going to number 4, Josiah Stewart going for 10-plus sacks. Now, I think you could make the same conversation for Derek Moore, and why I am so high on Josiah Stewart is, and this is a kid that had a 17.9% pass rush win rate last year, 18 quarterback hurries, while kind of splitting time at that edge rusher position. And you go back to Michigan in 2023, Braden McGregor, Jalen Harrell, Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart, they were all just kind of splitting time as edge rushers. In fact, if anything, McGregor and Jalen Harrell probably got a little bit more burn than Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart. Josiah Stewart's almost going to have double the opportunities to get after the passer. He had over 5 sacks last year. I think it is very realistic for how this Michigan defense is going to look, where we're going to win on first and second down. A lot of defenses, or a lot of opposing offenses, I should say, are going to be in those third and long situations because of how good Michigan is stopping the run. And I think that means some big things for Josiah Stewart, potentially Derek Moore as well, to go for 10-plus sacks. The last time we had 10-plus sacks, David Ajabo, Aiden Hutchinson, that combination was lethal. I think Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore can be very, very similar in terms of their productivity. And again, Josiah Stewart probably could have had 10-plus sacks last year if he wasn't splitting as much time as he was in the 2023 season. Josiah Stewart's the best pure pass rusher on this Michigan defense. I think he has a phenomenal year in 2024. Going to my last bold prediction, I don't even know how bold this one is. It might be bold for maybe some casual college football fans, but probably not for Michigan fans. I think you have 2 offensive linemen that could be first-team All-Big Ten caliber guys. The first guy I want to talk about is Myles Hinton. I think Myles Hinton arguably could have been a starter last year. I thought he might have been the best offensive tackle on this Michigan roster. Now, I fully recognize Sherrone Moore is a lot smarter than me, so I trust Sherrone Moore in terms of how he worked that offensive line. But when you watched Myles Hinton last year, he was by far our best run blocker. I think the questions were a little bit more in pass protection than it was in the run blocking department. Michigan's going to run the football a lot, and you have one of the most physically imposing offensive tackles in the country in Myles Hinton. If there's one thing Myles Hinton does exceptionally well, it is move people off the line of scrimmage. I think Myles Hinton fits exactly how Michigan wants to operate on offense in 2024. You are looking at least in my mind, some big-time upside at the offensive tackle spot. Again, another full offseason with this Michigan program. I think Myles Hinton emerges as a first-team All-Big Ten caliber guy. And I think the other guy I'm going to go with, and you can kind of choose your weapon, so to speak. Greg Crippen looked really good in the spring game. Again, we haven't seen a ton of Greg Crippen. We've seen him in kind of reserve moments. We've seen a lot of these guys a lot in reserve moments. I look at Greg Crippen or Giovanni Ahadi. I think these two guys have massive, massive upside. I give them all the credit in the world for just being patient, waiting for Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinner to move on to the NFL. Now it's their opportunity, both going into their fourth year within this Michigan program. They're going to hit the ground running. And I think the upside is certainly there for both Greg Crippen and Giovanni Ahadi. I think one of those two emerges as some of the better offensive linemen that we see in the Big Ten. And that kind of goes to our conversation where, yeah, on paper, Michigan loses all 5 of their starting offensive linemen from last year. You have a couple of veterans in Myles Hinton and Josh Preeb. Greg Crippen and Giovanni Ahadi are veterans in and of themselves. They're going into their 4th years of college football, guys that would have started on almost every single offensive line across the country. I think as Michigan fans, we feel really good about guys like Greg Crippen, Giovanni Ahadi not coming in and just being quality starters. I think we feel really good about them coming in and being difference makers on the offensive line. Those are my 5 bold predictions for this Michigan program. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section as well. Hey, we all get our opportunity to call our shot a little bit heading into 2024. Let it fly in the comments section. Look forward to hearing your guys' bold predictions. Appreciate you. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.